short introduction. Yeah, it's wonderful. I wonder if she knows.
She knows.
Just kidding. It's to put you on the spot there, Ned. So, it's a pleasure to be here. And in the seriousness of life, I'm glad we're able to laugh. Silly things, small things just are such a wonderful place. So, that being said, as we go on in this conversation, just as much as you would be curious to what I have to say, I'm curious myself. I know my bullet points, but we'll discover the rest as it goes. Beautiful timing, there's no coincidences as we understand through our work of life. Everything is happening for a reason. And this song is such a beautiful song because I catch myself saying this. I can speak from my stories because I know that's my reality. And I know where I stand. So, beautiful song, and then it's always a charging song, takes me back home. So, that being said, a few years ago, before COVID, I had the privilege of being in Arthur Findlay College. That was my last visit. I was in a study group, and I studied there very intentfully, and I met with a spiritualist medium in the college. Her name is Jackie Wright. Currently, she sits as a president of the Spiritualist National Union. Also, she has responsibilities in the college for education and academics. So, if she hears this, she'll know her introduction there. So, when the classes happen there, we students or attendees get an opportunity to get a private sitting or reading from the available mediums. And I chose Jackie to be my medium, and fortunately I was able to make an appointment and go on from there. What her initiating part of the reading is what I'm wanting to share, because I feel that's where everything is going to unfold, as I was even listening to my own pointers, because all will make sense. So she set up in terms of, as she would talk to me about my life, she would be talking in points of reference of seasons. And she would say, I see life as a tree, as above, so below, and then she goes through describing seasons, giving her impressions, psychic, intuitive, mediumistic, whatever is presenting at that moment, so she would present that. And she set it up in a way that it was wholesome, it was understandable. So when she did go into her information, things were making sense because the reference point was there, is there. So that is there. One thing in that little reading, just a small phrase, I will probably not be sharing the whole thing, but the one thing she says, I see you in spring, but through a season of fall. And that was interesting to just get my attention, as I have a mind of curiosity anyway, so it's interesting. And I think that's where we'll just sort of segue into whatever else is to be here in this conversation. Fall, for me, has always been a beautiful season. In India, where I grew up, we went from green to brown, cold to wet and hot and things. We didn't have to have fall colors where I lived. Everywhere else, there was lots of fall colors, wherever there was elevation and temperature changes, but where I lived, not different than here, everything turned from green to brown and then green again. So we didn't get to see that much. But fall, even there, was a big, deep season for me. And as a kid, I didn't realize as much as I can recognize it now. So for many years now, I want to say at least over 15, 16 years, fall becomes a contemplative time for me. I'm working, I'm functional, I have to do life as everybody else. But in the back, the little part of me is always listening, always going through that purging, fall-like feeling places. And I've noticed it's just my thing, but I share that with very excitement because we don't know how it might impact somebody else. And once again, our stories, no matter what they are, may be inspiration to somebody else, and somebody's stories are inspirational to us. So that's the exchange of life that goes on. But that season of fall, I always take time to break it down. What didn't work out, how I put things in motion. So it's almost like not exactly a midpoint check, but it is a check for my year. Any goals, plan I set, if I fulfill them, can I do more next year? what I have to change. I just go through that little hashing out. So I'm not waiting for January 1st or December 31st to show up and then I do my checklist. I just preemptively go through that phase. And it has become such a subconscious thing that I'm not even thinking anymore. It's just an automatic thing. I'm already doing this as I pulled in, and I was hearing my bullet points to talk about. And then I remembered Minister Jackie Wright's conversation and just saying, sometimes our fall could be very thriving. Holiday seasons are coming up, there could be a lot of things going on. Self-employment people or business people have this capturing of this commercializing of the holidays to capture all that profit, and businesses at the other end, somebody's preparing differently. So our seasons could look different. For somebody it could be a different season, even though timeline-wise it is a fall season for us, right? So something to think about, because reflecting in this space, time is linear in our human life. 2022, 23, next year is 2024. We're not going back to 2021. So it just is how it moves. But I, once again, very playfully, through this song and through my own memories, we had such a great understanding of time and remembering the season that was to come. Because our produce, our fruits and vegetables, ran on seasons. We did not have okra all year long, etc., etc. So everything was seasoned. So right now, even though it's fall, the excitement was being set up. Christmas is right around the corner. So the house gets clean. So the spring cleaning is not in spring, it's right before Christmas. So the house is neat and clean and so forth. So the seasons were very profound. The summer was all about going and spending time with cousins and grandparents. And back in my younger years, my grandfather had a farm, and sometimes we had an excitement to go visit whenever we get the opportunity. Everything was seasoned. It was still going from one school year to the next school year. But mostly the excitement came with the seasons are changing. And we would be ready. Right about now we will be doing an inventory if anybody needs a sweater or anybody needs some winter clothes, because we have to prepare, not wait till the winter gets here. You know, once again, the preparation time is there. Now my thought process is, we are all sitting in the season of fall, right? Very simply, visually, leaves are going to fall, the nature is going to go through the change and so on and so forth. But somewhere there's going to be snow, somewhere there's going to be really dry season, but still it is the season of fall no matter where we go, right? The temperature, the environment is different. But the thought that was added this morning was, has anybody ever been able to stop a falling leaf? A leaf that is about to separate from the limb or the branch, has been able to be paused or stopped? When it's time, it's time. Similarly, after a short spell, has anybody been able to stop a leaf from budding out when it's time for that leaf to bud out? The only thing is, man cuts it off. Somebody else is responsible for breaking that process. But at the same time, the push in our lives is always there. So when we are ready to pass on certain things in our life, we should let it pass. Why do we want to or have the desire to hold on to things? You know, if it is feeling it's done its job, it's done its purpose, or it's ran its course, pass it to the next person. I was such a blessed environment that I had times where hand-me-downs were the great thing, because the sizing chart ran that direction, and then the cycle reversed, then the sizing chart ran in a different direction. It was just a fun thing to say, oh, I know I'm going to get that sweater next year. It was just a simple fun thing. But at the same time, there was no such thing as this is less or this is more. It was just a thing. And then our cousins, sometimes we would do like, pick that one because I might get it next year. So we would make those arrangements. But the fun of that exchange was just the spirit of the aspect of things is there. Now why do we talk about that? We are living a very fast-paced life. Everything is moving so fast. Everything is such a great movement or vibratory level, if you want to call it that we have to be ready to just move things along as soon as we can. So taking in, keeping what's yours will always stay, you know. But at the same time, what is getting ready to pass through, the question or the contemplation is, do I really need to hold on to this? Or do I just let it pass? There's a thought behind it. There's a lot of emotional cues are there. And then we have to understand that are we outgrowing those cues too? We don't need to have the same point of reference. Are we allowing ourselves to change our point of reference? In 1838 or 1835, whenever we started our journeys here, we are sitting at a total different timeline of things. You cannot change the core. Because if you change the core of the magnet is no longer a magnet. It's metal or it's a paperweight at minimum. So you can't change the core. You've got to have some core in there. But at the same time, what it can attract or what it can pull you in or out of, that's always up for saying. The movement has to continue. You know, just like we say, you know, if we lose the polar fields, things are going to be upside down. Everything's going to change, but at the same time, the thought is, what are we ready to release? Because we are no different than any polarity. We are two poles in our own makeup of energy. So my rule of thumb in this time period becomes contemplate, going deeper, and if I have to spend time by myself, if I don't have to be around people and circumstances, then I just tuck myself at home. Just stay in that little thinking space or feeling space and set the tone to whatever is happening next. And possibly release things that I'm not able to use or utilize anymore. Advancement of thought is there. So what helps me is a list of things, and I was contemplating about that list, and I came up about a few things, and I thought some more, then I came up with a few more things. So we'll gently but kindly go through part B of this conversation. The title is 10 Things for Spiritual Growth, but this is 10 Things for Growth. It doesn't matter what department you look at it, right? So the first one is to meditate or be silent, and that's where I'm starting this journey for my next 3 months, and I'm just inspiring for you. If you would like to feel it within yourself, if that's what the need is, then you honor that space within yourself. So meditate doesn't work for me. Being silent definitely works for me. I'm pretty happy in my own space. I don't need a lot of conversation. Sometimes I don't need anything. I can just sit, be quiet. Meditating, I've tried it. I can do it in short order. But if I have to do it for long duration, it's not been very effective for me. And that's again, once again, can I hold on to that strive to meditate and push myself and annoy the heck out of me? The meditation is a wash. So I learned it doesn't work. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I know I can zone out. But at the same time, I don't have to do much of that. So I just go through that space. So silence for me has been very effective because I can sit quietly for a long time. Second part says mentor/teachers. It's effective to have good guides, good point of anchor where you can look up to something. You have people in community you can come to, feel at home. Even if it's at work, there's somebody that can teach you about work. Even if it's here, that can talk about your gifts and your skills, etc., that's fine too. And then if you have some Rotary Club or Elks Lodge where you can go have another set of mentoring, teaching of enjoyment, you can find your subsets. But this mentor-teacher, I do feel that has added tremendous amount of value for me, and I know there are a few people here that would say the same thing, that that point of guidance sometimes comes from uncanny, unusual circumstances. My teachers are right in front of me. And that's how I see things. Is in there. I do have mentors or my gurus, some people that I am very reverent of. They have a different sort of a classification system, but everybody is a teacher for me. Passing by, somebody can be a teacher for me. journaling, which is interesting. My form of journaling, if you know me through social media or other ways, my journaling comes out in short paragraphs, poetry in some way, but that's my version of journaling, but it's still cared about my thoughts and emotions. You can do in your version, if it means scratching on a piece of paper, doodling somewhere, anything that lets the next motion or emotion pass through you is a perfectly good way of journaling. If you are somebody who enjoys a computer, type it at the computer. There has been a lot of written proofs of automatic writing through computers. It is not necessarily paper and pen, like it has always been said. The fourth is very imperative. It is to learn to trust your gut. And that ties me back to my starting point of this season. When I know in my gut it's time to let go of something, I don't question it anymore. And I say that with honor because those things are not easy. It takes a lot out of us in that process. But at the same time, it is also making space for new things, new potentials, new possibilities, and new journeys. And that's part for me right now. My amazement, I go back into my very first memory of I saw somebody's hand and their hands were still not in the perfect order, comparing myself. Everything is just fine still. But I was looking at that and then I realized they had an injury and their elbow healed the way it healed and their hand would never go. And I think, once again, we're talking about from where I come from, but the thought was not everything may grow the way we want it to grow, but it might grow enough to be functional or give some ability to feel a sense about it. And that's another part of being open and vulnerable within our intuitiveness to say, this feels, but doesn't make sense here, but it feels right. And we need to take that step to go into saying, let's see what the possibilities might show. And then explore the next thing is there. The number 5, I talk about that very profusely. I've spoken here many times, but I'll repeat just briefly. Connection with the nature is a beautiful thing. And if you don't have nature, if you live in a high-rise where you cannot have plants, etc. and whatnot, take yourself a little. I have to just pause because some humorist is wanting to step here, but it's not the time. But anyhow, find yourself a little small potted plant, just hold it for a little while, buy yourself a flower, that might just do the trick. My silliness of just not too long ago, I mentioned about holding a bowl of water. It has the ability to take things off and on through that part, but any small amount of connection with nature. I find even in simple ways, a little staring at an open sky is very reasonably therapeutic for me. It just zones me out and gives me the little compass there. Now, between the 4th and the 5th, what we were talking about earlier about things will grow where they grow. So welcoming new experiences, welcoming new thoughts, opening the possibilities of what's next, and not trying to define it so much what the next should look like. That's what gets me most of the time because my mind wants to know everything or wants to see everything. But define it in a certain finite way. And even though I understand my orbit of attraction, I do know I get caught up in something. My mind just makes things, wants to see things. And then I'm learning, and that's my learning curve, I believe, is going to be when the thought occurs or the experience comes in to just leave it where it is. And sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. I'd like to see things. Number 7 is setting intention. And I think that's where is sort of primary role of what we teach in spiritualism, what we talk about in spirituality. Intention is everything. Purpose and intention is always what needs to be investigated in anything. So I know we all have done things with purpose and intention. Most of them went the way they were supposed to go, and some of them didn't go the way they were supposed to go. But then who says that was not the way it was supposed to go? It's a hard thing to accept, but that's where we are. So the number 8 thing is practice, practice, practice. And the part of that is practice, practice, practice. because practice makes perfect. But practice also gives you a little persistence, the ability to stay put with something. So if you are in any water activities, diving or anything, or even swimming, the practice develops your tone and your muscle and your lungs to be in that space, so practice. The number 9 thing is to read, read, and read. I know in my presence, I know there are a lot of people that do read on their own spaces, but that's another thing too. Put what we think individually and from our own compass, what is quality information, or what draws us into discovering and chasing new sets of information. It could be a wonderful supplement when something is leaving, to use it as a salve or use it as a point of contemplation to add things to think about things. We are doing that on a regular basis anyways, but if we do it intentionally, then we're intentionally supplementing our intellectual and mental spaces. That's the difference, because the thought runs everywhere. So, number 10 is tied into number 1. Deepen your meditation. So in this list, number 1 and number 10 are the 2 constants. Between 2 and 9, you can pick your order. Deepen your meditation. In other words, go within, be more strongly connected to your own core, your understanding of the divine, whatever it is, and then keep working with it. My version doesn't match with anybody else's version. That's how I've come around in my understanding. I'll have to make peace with it. My job is not to convince anybody. My job is to know what is, and that's okay from my perspective. So, the number 11 is a bonus tip. We have come to the age where 10 is not enough. We've got to give one supplement. Supplemental information. And that information is, always carry the aspect of gratitude. Even when you start the meditation, before you deepen it, you can always start with a sense of gratitude. Is there? So in Hindu traditions, their opening prayer is through praising to the Ganesha. They do the Om Namah Shivaya. And the gratitude through that aspect is to take care of all the obstacles, all the things that can go wrong, please take care of it. So if we were to have St. Murphy, we've got to be praying to St. Murphy. That way anything that has to go wrong doesn't go wrong. We're talking about that Murphy's Law. But so part of that aspect is to set up the tone of my journey. Everything that I'm just once again using my story, and I will break it down to worked or didn't work, because it still will pass through gratitude. People that went away, circumstances that didn't work out, I still have grace. It taught me something. It taught me a part of me that I didn't get to see otherwise. So I'm in that space of gratitude. It happened. If good or bad is subjective. But the gratitude has always carried me through. So through fall, the winter, and anything, I'm just going to give you another plot of thinking for you. Should we choose to not worry about time and only worry about in terms of season, how does it make you feel? But then we are only perhaps responsible for a few months at a time, not through the whole year. We're only looking at a short to mid-term perspective rather than a very long-term perspective that can change with one small decision. So think about that. If we were to think in seasons, we just have to be okay with the next 3-4 months, seasons especially. How would it feel? Would you be able to adapt to it? And maybe we'll discuss that in a different time to see how that went for you. Everything is spiritual, everything can be spiritualized as recognized. Thank you.
Thank you.